Long ago, in a small village called Nurabad, lived a man named Rashid with his wife, Salma, and their 4 daughters. Their life was simple, but one desire had slowly taken away Rashid's peace. He desperately wanted a son. Now Salma was expecting their 5th child, and as the day of the birth came closer, Rashid became more restless. One evening, he looked at Salma and said bitterly, "Will it be another daughter this time too?" Salma felt deeply hurt. She gently reminded him that children were not in their hands. A son or a daughter, both were blessings from God. But Rashid refused to listen. He already had 4 daughters, and he could not accept the thought of having another one. His anger frightened Salma more than she could admit. Sometime later, Salma gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The moment she held the child, her heart filled with love. She looked at her tiny face, her little hands, and then Rashid's angry words returned to her mind. Fear took over. She began to believe that if Rashid discovered the truth, something terrible might happen. That night, Salma made the most painful decision of her life. When everyone was asleep, she wrapped the baby carefully and quietly left the house through the back door. The night was dark and silent. Salma walked until she reached the river Safa. Near the bank, she found a large clay pot. She placed a soft cloth inside it, then gently laid her baby down. Her hands were shaking. She held the child close one last time and whispered, "My little princess, forgive me. I am not leaving you because I do not love you. I am doing this because I want you to live. May God protect you wherever you go." With tears running down her face, Salma slowly pushed the clay pot into the river. The current carried it away. She remained on the bank, watching until it disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, on the other side of the river, a washerman named Kareem was washing clothes when he noticed the clay pot floating toward the shore. Curious, he stepped into the water and pulled it out. But just as he leaned closer to look inside, a powerful sound of wings filled the air. A huge eagle swept down from the sky. Before Kareem could react, the eagle gently lifted the newborn in its strong claws and flew away. Kareem could only stand there in shock, watching it disappear beyond the trees. The eagle carried the baby deep into the forest, to an enormous old banyan tree. There, on one of its highest branches, it placed the child safely beside itself. For a few moments, the eagle simply stared at the tiny face. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of harming the baby, a strange, protective tenderness awakened inside the eagle. From that day on, the eagle became her mother. She named the child Ayla. Years passed beneath the great banyan tree. The eagle brought Ayla food, colorful clothes, bangles, combs, and little treasures from nearby villages. Slowly, the helpless baby grew into a beautiful young woman. She had known only the forest, the tree, and the loving eagle who had raised her. One evening, as the sun was setting, the eagle looked at Ayla with concern. "You are grown now," she told her. "Whenever I fly far away to find food, I worry about you. If you are ever afraid, if you are ever in danger, call for me with the words I taught you. I will come." Ayla smiled and promised she would never forget. She had no idea that very soon, someone would arrive beneath that same banyan tree and change her life forever. A few days later, a young prince named Zayan was returning from a hunting trip with a small group of men. The afternoon was hot, and the long journey had left him exhausted. He asked his companions to rest nearby, then walked toward the shade of the old banyan tree. It was the same tree where Ayla had spent almost her entire life. Zayan had only just sat down when something soft brushed against his shoulder. A long strand of silky black hair had fallen from above. He looked up and froze. High on one of the branches sat a beautiful young woman. Her face was gentle, her eyes full of innocence, and she looked just as surprised to see him. Zayan slowly stood up. "Who are you?" he asked. "And how are you living up there?" But Ayla had never seen a man this close before. Her whole life had been spent in the forest with the eagle she called her mother. Fear suddenly rushed through her. She stepped back on the branch and quickly repeated the special words her eagle mother had taught her. Within moments, the sound of powerful wings filled the air. The eagle came down and landed beside Ayla. She immediately noticed her daughter's frightened face, then looked down at the stranger standing beneath the tree. Zayan introduced himself respectfully. He explained that he was a prince from the kingdom of Maranga. Then he asked how a human girl had come to live with an eagle in the middle of the forest. The eagle did not tell him every detail. She simply explained that she had found Ayla as a helpless baby many years ago and had raised her as her own daughter. Zayan was stunned. He looked at Ayla again, and something about her innocence and quiet nature deeply touched him. After some thought, he spoke honestly. "I do not want to hide anything from you," he said. "I already have 3 wives, but if you both agree, I would like to marry Ayla. I promise I will treat her with respect and give her a safe life." The eagle remained silent for a while. The thought of losing Ayla hurt her deeply, but she also knew her daughter could not spend her whole life hidden among the branches of a tree. Finally, she agreed. She turned to Ayla and gently reminded her, "If you ever feel afraid, if you ever need me, call me the way I taught you. I will come." Ayla hugged her mother tightly. Soon after, Ayla married Prince Zayan and left the forest with him. For the first time in her life, she entered a royal palace. Everything felt strange: the tall walls, the servants, the rich fabrics, the crowded halls. But the biggest difficulty was not the palace itself. It was Zayan's 3 other wives. From the moment Ayla arrived, they disliked her. They noticed how much attention Zayan gave her, and slowly, their jealousy turned into bitterness. One day, they came to Ayla and said coldly, "If you are going to live here as a queen, then you should know how to manage a household. Today, you will cook for everyone." Ayla immediately became nervous. She had grown up in the forest. She had never learned how to cook. The 3 women laughed at her and walked away, certain that she would fail. With tears in her eyes, Ayla went quietly into the palace garden and called for her eagle mother. A short while later, the eagle appeared. Ayla told her everything. Her mother comforted her, then patiently explained how to prepare rice and curry. Ayla listened carefully and followed every instruction. To everyone's surprise, the meal turned out delicious. Zayan was impressed, but his 3 wives were furious. The next day, they gave Ayla another difficult task. This time, they ordered her to clean a large pile of dirty dishes. Once again, Ayla called her eagle mother. With her guidance, Ayla completed the work perfectly. The dishes shone, and Zayan praised her again. Day by day, Ayla's place in his heart grew stronger. And with every success, the jealousy of the other 3 women grew darker. Soon, they stopped thinking about how to embarrass her. Now they wanted to discover her secret. Sometime later, preparations began for the annual festival in Marangar. The palace was filled with excitement, and Prince Zayan decided to give all 4 of his wives the same task. He called them together and handed each of them some thread. "For the festival," he said, "I want each of you to make a dhoti and a scarf for me with your own hands." The first 3 wives were pleased. They already knew how to weave cloth. But Ayla's heart sank. She had never learned weaving. The other women noticed her worried face and smiled to themselves. This time, they were certain she would finally fail. Ayla quietly went to the palace garden and called for her eagle mother. Before long, the familiar sound of wings returned. Ayla told her about Zayan's challenge. Her mother gently reassured her, then gave her a small sealed cloth bag. "Do not open it now," she said. "On the day of the festival, give it directly to Zayan." Ayla looked confused. "That is all?" The eagle mother gave her a calm look. "That is enough." The day of the festival soon arrived. One by one, Zayan's 3 wives presented the clothes they had made. Their work was neat, and they were proud of it. Then Ayla stepped forward and handed Zayan the sealed bag. When he opened it, everyone stared. Inside was a beautiful silk dhoti and scarf, finer than anything the others had made. Zayan was delighted. He praised Ayla warmly in front of everyone. But the other 3 women were no longer just jealous. Now they were suspicious. They knew Ayla had never learned to weave. Yet somehow, she had once again succeeded. There had to be a reason. From that day on, they began watching her closely. They followed her quietly through the palace. They watched where she went, when she disappeared into the garden, and who she spoke to. Then one evening, they finally discovered the truth. Hidden behind the trees, they heard Ayla repeat the special call. A few moments later, the great eagle came down from the sky. The 3 women exchanged a look. Now they understood everything. The eagle was the reason Ayla never failed. And in their minds, there was only one solution. The eagle had to disappear. A few days later, Zayan left the palace for a hunting trip. The 3 wives waited until Ayla was nowhere near the garden. Then they took heavy sticks and went outside. One of them copied Ayla's voice and repeated the special call. Far above them, the eagle heard it. She believed her daughter was in danger. Without hesitation, she came down. But the moment she landed, the three women attacked. The eagle had no time to escape. They struck her again and again until she stopped moving. The next day, Ayla went to the garden and called for her mother. Nothing happened. She called again. Still nothing. There was no sound of wings. No shadow in the sky. No familiar presence beside her. Ayla kept calling until her voice began to break. Then slowly, a terrible truth entered her heart. She looked at the three women and understood. Her mother was gone. Ayla sat alone and cried for a long time. The eagle had never been just a bird to her. She had been her mother, her protector, her entire world. But Ayla's pain was not over yet. A few days later, Zayan had to leave Maranga on an important trading journey. As soon as he was gone, the three wives made another plan. They secretly contacted a wealthy merchant named Faris and arranged to sell Ayla to him. One afternoon, they tricked her into going with them to the riverbank. They told her that a merchant had brought beautiful fabrics and jewelry on his boat. Ayla did not suspect anything. But the moment she stepped onto the boat, the three women forced her father inside. Faris immediately pushed the boat away from the shore. By the time Ayla understood what was happening, it was too late. He tied her hands and feet and told her she now belonged to him. "I am taking you far away," he said coldly. "In another land, your beauty will make me rich." The river stretched endlessly around them. Night slowly covered the sky. Ayla lay helpless inside the boat, thinking only of her mother. With tears in her eyes, she looked upward and whispered a prayer. She had lost the one person who had always come when she called. Now, she had no one left but God. Faris heard her and laughed. But his laughter did not last long. Dark clouds suddenly gathered above the river. The wind grew violent. Lightning flashed across the sky. Within moments, a terrifying storm surrounded the boat. Faris struggled to control it, but the waves became stronger. Then a powerful bolt of lightning struck nearby. The boat shook violently. Faris lost his balance and fell into the river. The current dragged him away. The boat began to break apart. In the chaos, Ayla struck her head against the wooden side. Her vision blurred. The storm faded into darkness. The next morning, Ayla slowly opened her eyes. She was lying on damp ground near the river. Her clothes were still wet, and a sharp pain throbbed in her head. For a few moments, she could barely remember what had happened. Then the storm came back to her. The boat, Faris, the violent waves, her mother. Ayla closed her eyes for a moment, trying to gather her strength. Then she heard something in the distance. Horses were crying out nervously. Men were shouting. Ayla forced herself to stand and followed the sound through the trees. What she saw made her stop. A powerful lion stood only a short distance away. Two royal guards had already fallen to the ground in fear and confusion. Near them stood an older man in royal clothing. He was King Rayyan, ruler of the kingdom of Avaron. He was trapped. Ayla was weak, injured and completely alone. But she could not simply watch someone die. She quickly gathered dry branches, grass and stones. After several attempts, she managed to start a small fire. Then she wrapped one end of a thick branch with burning material and made a torch. Holding it tightly, Ayla walked toward the lion. Her heart was pounding, but she kept moving. The lion turned toward her. For one brief second, fear almost froze her. Then Ayla remembered the eagle mother who had raised her. She lifted the torch and gave a sharp, powerful cry, almost like the call of an eagle. The sudden sound and the fire startled the lion. It stepped back. Ayla moved forward again. The lion hesitated, then finally turned and disappeared into the deeper forest. King Rayyan stared at her in disbelief. He had never expected a young woman, alone and wounded, to stand between him and a lion. After his guards recovered, he approached Ayla. "Who are you?" he asked. "And how did you come here?" The question brought back every painful memory. The banyan tree, her eagle mother, Zayan's palace, the betrayal, Faris and the storm. But Ayla was not ready to speak about any of it. She lowered her eyes and answered softly, "I am only a girl with nowhere to go. I have no family with me, and I do not wish to speak about my past." King Rayyan did not force her. He had already seen enough to understand that there was more to her story, but he was deeply impressed by her courage, her calmness, and the respect in her voice. So he made a surprising decision. He took Ayla back to Averon with him. In time, he accepted her as his own daughter and gave her the position of a princess. For the first time in many months, Ayla found a place where no one questioned her constantly or tried to hurt her. Slowly, she began to heal. Months passed. People in the royal court soon discovered that Ayla was not only brave. She was thoughtful, kind, and unusually wise. King Rayyan began asking for her opinion in important matters. One day, a farmer came before the court. His clothes were worn, and worry covered his face. He explained that the harvest had failed that year. The farmers had very little grain, but the landowners were still demanding full taxes. Those who could not pay were being threatened with losing their homes and fields. Many people in the court believed the taxes should still be collected, but Ayla listened quietly. Then she turned to King Rayyan. "A kingdom does not become strong by taking the last piece of bread from its people," she said. "If the farmers have nothing this year, forgive their taxes. Give them good seeds from the royal stores. Let them recover first, and when their fields grow again, the kingdom will grow with them." King Rayyan thought carefully about her words. Then he agreed. He ordered the taxes of the affected farmers to be forgiven and provided them with new seeds. The decision spread quickly through Averon. People began to respect Ayla even more. They saw her as a princess who understood their pain. For Ayla, life finally seemed to be becoming peaceful again. But she did not know that very soon, a case would come before the royal court that would uncover the secret of her birth and bring her face to face with the family she had lost long ago. A few days later, a serious case was brought before the royal court of Averon. The guards led in an old man who had been caught using fake royal coins in a marketplace. Behind him came an elderly woman, crying and begging for mercy. King Rayyan looked toward Ayla. By now, he trusted her judgment in difficult matters. The witnesses were questioned. The evidence was clear. The old man was guilty. According to the law of the kingdom, the crime was extremely serious. So Ayla gave the harshest sentence. The old man was to be put to death. The moment the decision was announced, the elderly woman broke down. She rushed forward and fell near Ayla's feet. "Please, princess, have mercy," she cried. "My husband did wrong. I know that. But poverty pushed him into desperation. Please spare his life." Ayla listened quietly. Then the woman reached for her hand. And suddenly, she froze. On the inside of Ayla's right wrist was a small crescent-shaped birthmark. The old woman stared at it as if she had seen a ghost. Her hands began to shake. "What is this mark?" she whispered. "How long have you had it?" Ayla looked down at her wrist. "It has been there since birth." The woman's face went pale. Tears filled her eyes. She was Selma. And in that instant, a memory from 20 years ago came rushing back. The dark night, the river Safa, the clay pot, and the newborn daughter she had sent away with her own hands. Selma began to cry uncontrollably. "My daughter had the same mark," she said. "A small crescent, exactly like this." The entire court fell silent. Ayla could barely understand what she was hearing. King Rayyan immediately ordered that Karim, that was Herman, be brought to the palace. When Karim arrived, he was already an old man. He listened carefully, then told the court what had happened many years earlier. He had found a clay pot floating in the river Safa. Inside was a newborn baby. But before he could lift her out, a huge eagle had swept down and carried the child away. Ayla felt the room spinning around her. Slowly, every piece began to fit together. Selma looked at her with tears running down her face. "You are that child," she whispered. "You are my daughter." Ayla's eyes moved toward the old prisoner. Then Selma revealed the final truth. The man standing before her was Rashid, her father. For a long moment, Ayla said nothing. She had spent her entire life believing she had no human family. Now both of her parents were standing before her. But the truth hurt. Ayla looked at them and asked softly, "Why did you leave me?" Selma lowered her head. She explained that Rashid had desperately wanted a son. After 4 daughters, she had been terrified of what he might do when another girl was born. So she had placed Ayla in the river, hoping she might survive somewhere far away. Rashid stood silently, unable to meet his daughter's eyes. Then finally, he spoke. "I was wrong," he said. "My pride made me blind. I thought a daughter was a burden, and because of that, I lost my own child." His voice broke. "The daughter I never wanted is now standing here as a princess, deciding whether I live or die." Ayla's eyes filled with tears. She had carried pain for years without even knowing where it had begun. Now the people responsible for that pain were standing in front of her. Rashid turned to King Rayyan. "Do not forgive me because she is my daughter," he said. "I am not worthy of her mercy. Give me the punishment I deserve." The court became completely silent. Ayla looked at Rashid, then at Selma. Then she slowly wiped her tears. Finally, she spoke. "Punishment cannot erase what happened to me. It cannot bring back the years we lost. But if regret is real, then mercy can still change what comes next." She turned to King Rayyan. "I forgive my father's death sentence." Selma began to cry again. She tried to fall at Ayla's feet, but Ayla quickly stopped her. Instead, she helped both of her parents stand. Then, for the first time in her life, Ayla embraced the mother who had given birth to her and the father whose mistake had changed her destiny. 20 years of separation could not disappear in a single moment. But something broken had finally begun to heal. Ayla thought the greatest secret of her past had now been revealed. She had no idea that another person from her old life was about to walk into the court. Someone who had never truly stopped searching for her. A few days later, a royal delegation arrived in Avaron from a neighboring kingdom. Leading it was Prince Zayan. He had come to speak with King Rayyan about an important matter. At first, everything seemed ordinary. Then Zayan's eyes moved across the court and stopped. Ayla was sitting beside King Rayyan. For a moment, Zayan could not speak. He simply stared at her. The woman he had searched for again and again, the wife he thought he had lost forever, was standing alive in front of him. He slowly stepped forward. "Ayla." Her eyes filled with tears. Zayan's voice began to shake. "Is it really you?" Ayla looked at him and nodded. "I never left you by choice," she said softly. "I was taken away from you." Zayan stood frozen. He told her that after she disappeared, his 3 wives had given him a completely different story. They had claimed that Ayla had run away with a merchant. Zayan had believed them, but he had still searched for her for a long time, hoping somehow that the story was not true. Then he asked the question Ayla had been dreading. "Where is your eagle mother?" Ayla's expression changed. The pain returned to her face. Slowly, she told him everything. She explained how his 3 wives had discovered the secret call she used to summon her mother. They had copied Ayla's voice, called the eagle down, and killed her. Then, while Zayan was away on his trading journey, they had sold Ayla to Faris. She told him about the boat, the ropes around her hands and feet, the storm, Faris falling into the river, and finally, how she had reached the forest and saved King Rayyan from a lion. Zayan listened in silence. With every word, his face became heavier with grief and anger. The women he had trusted had killed an innocent creature, sold his wife, and then destroyed her name with a lie. King Rayyan looked at Ayla. "You have found the truth," he said. "Now the choice is yours. You may stay here, or return with your husband." Ayla looked at the man who had given her shelter when she had nothing. Then she looked at Selma and Rashid. Finally, she turned towards Zayan. She thanked King Rayyan for treating her like a daughter and asked for his blessing. Then she decided to return to Marenga with Zayan. When they reached the palace, Zayan immediately summoned his 3 wives to the royal court. They entered confidently, until they saw Ayla standing beside him. Their faces went pale. There was no lie left to tell. Zayan revealed everything before the court. He spoke of the eagle mother's death, Ayla's sale to Faris, and the false story they had used to hide their crime. The 3 women were punished for what they had done. Their royal jewelry and privileges were taken away. Their heads were shaved as a mark of disgrace. Then they were expelled from Marenga and forbidden to return. The palace finally became peaceful again. But even after everything she had regained, there was one place Ayla still wanted to visit. Sometime later, she returned with Zayan, Selma, Rashid, and a few close companions to the old forest near River Safa. The great banyan tree was still there. Ayla walked beneath its branches and looked up. Every part of that place carried a memory. Her childhood, the little treasures her mother had brought her, the warmth of her wings, and the promise that whenever Ayla called, she would come. Ayla's eyes filled with tears. She quietly thanked the mother who had not given birth to her, but had given her love, protection, and a life. Then suddenly, a shadow passed across the ground. Everyone looked up. A large eagle was circling above the banyan tree. It slowly came down and landed on one of the highest branches. For a few moments, it simply watched Ayla. Then it gave one powerful call. Ayla smiled through her tears. She knew it was not the same eagle. But in that moment, it felt like a message, as if the love of her eagle mother had never truly left her. Selma gently held Ayla's hand. Rashid stood beside them in silence. And beneath the same tree where her life had once begun again, Ayla finally understood something. A mother is not only the person who gives birth. Sometimes, a mother is the one who protects you, raises you, sacrifices for you, and loves you when you have no one else. And the daughter who had once been treated as a burden had become the one who brought mercy, healing, and dignity back to her family.